The boy holds the chalk between his feet and draws something on the floor. His sister thinks he's drawing a triangle, but the position of the last stroke is wrong. His father, who is strong and sturdy, goes up to him and shows him the correct way to draw, but the boy is not satisfied with it, and he tries to scoot over and wipe it off. The mother sees signs that the boy is not satisfied with it. The boy nods his head excitedly in agreement with the mother, who seems to know what she means, and immediately, with great difficulty, scoots over to the center and sits down. He began to write carefully. The single word alone astonished the whole family, and then came the word, "Oh," just 2 letters, and the boy was sweating profusely. But before the boy finished writing, the mother's heart was already filled with tears of excitement, for she had not expected that the boy's first word would be his mother's. Exhausted, the boy finally made his family proud and expressed his love for his mother, and the father proudly carried the boy to the bar to announce that his boy was not at all what the people called him, but that he was not a child of the people. He is not what they say he is. It's a must-see inspirational film that's been in theaters for over 30 years, and has been rated 8.3 by many, because it teaches courage and strength to everyone in trouble, and if you're in a difficult situation right now, you might want to read the true story of a boy named Chris, who was born with a disability that left his left foot to move. Every time he went back to his room, he had to be carried by his mother with great effort, but on this particular day Chris heard the sound of his mother falling down the stairs, and Chris scurried over to the landing. But on this day, Chris heard his mother fall down the stairs and scurried to the stairway, but at the critical moment, her right foot became stuck, so she kicked her left foot hard and slid down the steps. Her mother was unconscious, so she kicked at the door, but it was only when the neighbors arrived that the tragedy was prevented, and because of Chris's good behavior, his father had a wheelbarrow made for him, which enabled him to enjoy a happy childhood, in the company of his friends. In the blink of an eye, he's grown up, but despite his limited mobility, he's able to take part in vigorous sport, and as a competent goalkeeper, he sees a football fly in, and Chris is able to stop it with his head, and he's able to return the color of bad behavior with his teeth. When it's time for Chris to take the penalty kick, he lies on the ground, causing the opposing goalkeeper to laugh softly, only for Chris to hit the ball with his strong left foot with such force that the goalkeeper dodges, and with the joy of his mates, Chris wins the game for them. As the crowd cheered, Chris won the game for them, and in addition to the violent confrontation, Chris was able to join in the gentle game of kissing the girl on whom the bottle was pointed. The girl thought it would be her favorite boy, but the bottle was pointed at Chris, and the unexpected result brought laughter from the crowd. The girl could only walk up to Chris, and "You're the prettiest girl in her life." The girl's admiration. To Chris's delight, the girl, who was in love with him for the first time, spent the night on her feet creating a painting of the girl, which she received with great joy, thinking it was from the man of her dreams. When she showed it off to her girlfriends, they saw something wrong with the signature, and the girl, who felt humiliated by the girl's taunts, returned the gesture. Chris didn't realize that his sincere confession had become a burden that the girl was desperate to get rid of. But even more unfortunate for him was the fact that his father, who was unemployed, had lost his job and his family had to live from day to day on the West Country. But to add insult to injury, his father lost his job and the family was left with no means. They survived on thin porridge from dawn till dusk and couldn't even afford coal for winter. Despite the brothers huddling together in one bed, the cold often woke them, so Chris suddenly appeared in front of a coal truck, forcing it to stop. The driver had to get out to push him away, while his brothers took the chance to remove the pin, causing coal to spill everywhere. Their plan's success made them cheer, and they rushed to gather the coal, joined by neighbors. Even prams were used to carry it. But when they returned home excitedly, their mother was not pleased. "You know this is a crime, and heaven is watching you," she said sternly, closing the door to show her disapproval. Segment 2. The fire in the hearth still warmed the whole house. Segment 3. However, the sudden fall of the iron goose made Chris very nervous. Segment 4. His unusual behavior caught his mother's attention. Segment 5. With Chris's reminder, his mother discovered the iron box being roasted. She hurriedly retrieved it, ignoring the burns from the heat. The father couldn't understand why a broken box was worth the risk, but when he opened it, he found a large sum of money.
It turned out the mother had been secretly saving to buy Chris a wheelchair. Despite the family's poverty, she insisted on saving for this purpose. Eventually, Chris got his wheelchair, and his mother even arranged for a doctor, but considering their poverty, Chris was reluctant until his mother said the treatment was free, which gave him hope. However, at the hospital, surrounded by children, Chris felt uncomfortable as an adult receiving the same treatment. He chose to return home, trying to imagine his future through drawing. Segment 6. Yet, Aileen didn't give up on Chris. She visited him, gently saying he could be treated at home if he didn't want to go to the hospital. Her humor opened Chris's heart. Aileen started working on his stiff neck and used bubble blowing to improve his lung capacity. But after days of hard training, there was no progress. Chris couldn't face his stagnation and fell into despair again. Aileen gave him a book, Hamlet, hoping it would inspire him to overcome difficulties. Encouraged, Chris even recited empowering quotes while drawing. His clear words reached his mother's ears, bringing her comfort but also concern, as she realized Chris had fallen for Aileen. She didn't want her son, already disabled, to suffer more emotional pain. Segment 7. As feared, the mother's worries came true. Aileen, appreciating Chris's artistic talent, arranged an exhibition for him. Seeing Aileen, who constantly extended a helping hand, Chris confessed his feelings. Segment 8. Chris understood that Aileen's liking was merely admiration. Segment 9. With the exhibition's great success, Chris's talent became widely known. Segment 10. At the celebration, Chris happily drank a lot and, under the influence, confessed his love to Aileen again. Segment 11. But Aileen told him that the man who helped to organize the exhibition was her fiancé. Segment 12. Watching them hold hands sweetly, Chris, though heartbroken, chose to loudly bless Aileen. Segment 13. Chris, ignoring the looks from others. Ignoring the same stares from everyone around him, Chris drank one glass after another to drown his sorrows. He hated himself for being born a cripple, and no matter how hard he tried, he could not get the love that ordinary people could get easily. Apparently, the fire of his love had just been doused by the cruelty of reality. The more he thought about it, the more he was saddened, and he even started to hit his head on the table again and again, in a frenzied maneuver that embarrassed all the people in the room. Even when Ellen's fiancé tried to force her out, Chris stubbornly bit the tablecloth with her mouth. Well, her relationship with Irene is like a broken cup, completely irreversible. The party ends in a farce, and when she sobers up, Chris realizes that she has hurt Elaine, who has been helping her, and is ashamed. She writes a page, hoping to get away as soon as possible. It was a useless joke, and yet, to her despair, she could not perform even such a simple action. Looking at the despondent Chris, the mother expects her son to pick himself up. The mother began to work on building a studio for Chris, so that he could concentrate on painting and get rid of the darkness in his heart. Chris came downstairs, looking at his hard-working mother. His mother confessed that Chris understood that the last thing he should let his mother down on was her commitment. The father came back and looked at the two busy men and decided to join in with the others, and Chris's studio was finally complete. His mother told Chris that this was a father's love, wordless but powerful, but what Chris didn't realize was that although the studio had risen, its sky would soon collapse. That day, when they came back from shopping, they found their father collapsed on the ground. Though Chris pushed the door open as hard as he could, he was one step too late, and his father was gone, silently, forever. The family went to the bar where his father used to go to pay off his debts, and in honor of his father, Chris sang the song that he loved so much, and the rest of his family and friends chimed in, and the noise drew the men's ire, and his father's oldest friend stepped forward to tell them that the men's taunts had brought the family to their feet, and Chris, who was strong enough to advise the men to calm down, used his left foot and angrily split the men's cups, and in an instant, the battle raged on, as they punched the provocative men to death, and then beat him to death. They beat the provoking men to death, defending the last vestiges of his father's honor, and after all that had happened, Chris realized that the meaning of his paintings could not be understood by ordinary people, whereas the words could be read so easily, and with the help of his family, he had his story published, and thus gained £800, which he stole away in his mother's tin box, where the children were clamoring for more at table, and where the men had been so angry with him that he had to be taken away. The family's cheers gave Chris a great sense of achievement, as the once derided draghead became the head of the family. He gave all his money to his mother, who had saved all her life so that she could add beautiful dresses to her own wardrobe, but she still bought a typewriter for Chris. But his mother still bought Chris a typewriter, and through Chris's tireless efforts, his talents were seen by many, and he proved to the world that one foot could make a good living for a family. A few years found Chris, and after a long time, the two of them got over the events of that day. She came to ask the little-known Chris to participate in a charity event, which Chris readily agreed to do. At the event, she met a woman, Mary of the Forbidden City, and after reading Chris's book, she was overcome by the unyielding soul of this man. At the same time, Mary's cheerfulness fascinates Chris because she doesn't look at him in the same way, and they get along very well. Once again, Chris volunteered his love, and this time, Mary accepted. In the end, Chris found happiness of his own. This is the story of Christy Brown, the talented Irish writer and painter. Although he was imprisoned in a crippled body, he painted a splendid life with his only left foot. If you are at the lowest ebb, do not lie down at wool, but take a bold step forward, for in any case it will be an ascent.